House of the Dead for the Sega Saturn is a substandard port of a great shooter that is not worth the money it commands online. Unfortunately, unlike its two sequels, it has not seen re-release, so this is the only way to bring it home to a console. PC is not a console. A step above its Sega contemporaries, the Virtua Cop games, it's probably the best of what you could expect from the Saturn, a system that can never do 3D very well anyway, and features exclusive content that certainly amounts to something, though this doesn't save it from being a lackluster port with a bunch of issues. And on top of that, it's super rare. While most super rare games are either just plain terrible, or gimmicky tournament carts made for store kiosks, House for Saturn is neither Action 52 terrible or Star Fox Competition rare. But for people like myself who collect to play, not just to own, I'd say House of the Dead is not worthy of what it commands on eBay. It's a tough recommendation even at $50, which is what it cost back in the 90s, but since this game can get in the $100 range, I'd say you're better off saving up for Earthbound. As with most systems, some of the greatest and rarest Saturn games snuck in right as the system was dying. When everyone was rightfully enjoying their PlayStations and N64s, games like Saturn Bomberman, Albert Odyssey, Enemy Zero, Magical Knight Rareth, Panzer Dragoon Saga found their way to store shelves when nobody was looking. But this is usually how it goes. By the way, if you're watching this and 20 does, you'd be wise to get the last story in Xenoblade Chronicles before the Wii dies off completely and those games get crazy expensive. Which is the case with House of the Dead. It slid into American stores in May of 1998, a little more than a year before the Dreamcast came out. Like the games I mentioned, it was given a very limited pressing and is one of the rarest games on the system. This copy was purchased when it first came out, and I feel it is my duty to remind you that just because a game is rare doesn't mean that it is good. But to be clear, this game isn't outright terrible, it's just got a lot of problems. What holds House back is how it feels and how it looks. For starters, the gunplay is off. There's lag that wasn't present in Sega's previous Saturn shooter, Virtua Cop 2. House is no different from Virtua Cop. It's frantic and loves to surprise you, but House on Saturn doesn't allow the flexibility it demanded in the arcades. Yes, the frame rate is very choppy at times, but I feel like I'm always a half step behind the action. Precision is there. The Sega Saturn stunner gun, yes that's really what it's called, is solid. Aiming isn't a problem, it's getting shots off in time. When enemies jumped out at me, I felt like I was just barely hitting or missing them. But on Virtua Cop, it would have been no problem. This also made the second boss, who was already a bit of a prick, an absolute pain. Oddly though, he isn't as mobile when you fight him again, so he's much easier later on. And man does this game have the worst kind of loading. Not only is it often, it ends so abruptly. Usually there are creatures ready to attack you literally seconds after the game comes back on. So while this is happening, you're expected to keep at the ready while it fetches the rest of the game for you. I'm usually not one to criticize graphics, since retro is kind of my thing, but the visuals are just plain ugly. Again, in the arcades, House was a graphical improvement over Virtua Cop 2. Bringing House to Saturn was clearly a difficult task. Also, given when this port was produced, I'm sure a lot of the Sega A-team was secretly busy on Dreamcast stuff. It's possible that this port could have looked and ran better, but the reality is it doesn't. The visuals are bad and the frame rate chugs at times. It's a mess. Furthermore, terrible graphics can make enemy projectiles like axes difficult to spot and deflect. And it's definitely a bummer that this game got an M rating, yet red blood is hidden behind a debug code. It's such a shame that House of the Dead has never been re-released. Branching paths give this game a lot of replayability, saving scientists give you plenty of opportunities to extend your life, and Saturn mode is a lot of fun. Playing with a super strong gun that only has 2 bullets in the chamber changes the dynamic of the game a lot. Also, these dudes have flame chainsaws, how fucking cool is that? But there must have been some technical reason why it wasn't included in the Wii compilation, which is again a shame. It's a solid light gun game, and laggy shooting with ugly graphics proves it just couldn't be done justice on the Saturn. Factor in its triple-figure commanding price tag online, and it's very difficult to recommend House of the Dead for the Sega Saturn. If you're gonna spring for a Sega Saturn stunner gun, Virtua Cops 1 and 2 hold up. If you're itching to play this game, consider the Windows port. And if you're looking to drop some serious coin on a rare game, you're better off saving your money until you've got enough for Earthbound, Snatcher, or a complete Lunar on PlayStation.